Broadcasting from our New England studio, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Nexthink in the Solution Spotlight, an inside look at enterprise technologies.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to the Solution Spotlight featuring Nexthink, and focused on realizing AI value and transforming IT support. AI is swarming the world of work, but most organizations are still struggling to realize its value. Employees experiment with new tools every day, yet leaders lack visibility into what's being used, how it's used, and what impact it's having. The result is a growing AI value gap, filled with untapped potential and missed opportunities for productivity. So today, we will shine our spotlight on Nexthink to see how organizations are closing this gap and others, while providing full visibility into AI adoption and performance across the enterprise. To walk you through the presentation today from Nexthink, we have Matt Rose, Manager of Product Marketing, and Kevin Satterwhite, Solution Consultant. Matt, Kevin, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us, Doug. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Well, I just think this is a really interesting topic because it feels like a downstream impact on kind of the revolutionary moment we're in that people may not necessarily see coming. And so I'm excited to have you guys walk through this presentation. Now I know, Matt, you're going to start with a little bit of an overview of Nexthink and Dex, and then I think Kevin is going to jump in with a demo, a proper demo of Nexthink Spark, which will be a great thing for everybody to see. I'm going to jump back in at the end with some questions, but I want to turn this event over to you, Matt. I'm going to let you take it from here, and when you guys are all wrapping up, I'll come back in and we'll do a Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Doug. Appreciate it. Yeah, so today we've got a jam-packed session all around mining the AI value gap. Now, what does that mean? Well, for us at Nexthink, it's twofold, right? Gap one is really around this notion of AI-powered IT support and the act that, current IT support solutions that are in customer hands from a self-service perspective aren't really providing the promise that they were originally intended, that the onus is getting put back on employees to do the work versus having a truly agentic experience and being able to interact with AI and have problems solved completely end to end. The second gap is really around AI value realization and the tools that we utilize in our work every single day, from Microsoft Copilot to Claude to Gemini and so on and so forth, and really being able to help organizations understand what exactly is being used and the productivity that's being unlocked from employees using them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take 2 minutes talking about who Nexthink is, and then we're going to jump right into those two AI value gaps where my fellow presenter, Kevin, is going to be actually doing some live demos of these solutions. So who is Nexthink? Well, Nexthink is a Swiss-based organization that has customers around the world. We have more than 1,300 customers leveraging Nexthink today, and that's more than 25 million endpoints that it's actually deployed on, from the largest organizations in the United States to Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. Nexthink is the global leader in digital employee experience, and Gartner has named us that over the past couple years, that in their inaugural Dex Magic Quadrant and in 2024, and then their follow-up Magic Quadrant in 2025, Nexthink is leading the pack. And as such, the difference really with Nexthink is that our mission is to enable people to reach their full potential with technology. It's not just about, how do we save as much cost as we can, or how do we ensure that we have some kind of back-end visibility. No, it's more about how do we ensure that not only are we able to connect the dots in terms of what's happening on an employee's digital workplace, but also be able to ensure that that's a seamless experience every single time that they log on in the morning and log off at night. Now, for Nexthink, we're really kind of focused on how do we shift organizations from IT being this cost center to overarching value provider. And there are many, many different components throughout the Nexthink platform that helps be able to do so. but really, how do we ensure that customers are on a journey, that we're with you every single step of the way, and ensuring that, we're not only increasing employee productivity, but we're also helping helping employees improve adoption of different tools, being able to reduce the overarching number of disruptions that are taking place and potentially get ahead of those before they actually ever become disruptions at all. And then finally landing into a place of where IT is this strategic partner. And on top of that, massive cost savings are coming along with it in order to be able to ensure that organizations are running at peak efficiency, both in terms of IT operations on one side and then employee productivity on the other. Now, we do that through our Nexthink Infinity AI platform for DEX. What happens effectively is that we deploy a collector across every single device in the organization, which unlocks this unique visibility to be able to see, okay, what's going on from an employee perspective in terms of the hardware that's being utilized. How does that interact with the applications on that device, the operating systems that's actually running, the network that an employee is connected to, and so on and so forth, and being able to see, okay, here's what happens when one event leads to another, and how do we utilize this information in order to be able to ensure that devices are always running at optimal speed, and employees are always working that way. And this type of data all goes back into a single hub inside the Infinity platform that provides that intelligence for IT and business. And then on the flip side, eliminates IT issues for employees. Now, as mentioned, the Infinity platform is robust, and there's many, many different components to leveraging it. But what we're going to really focus on today is this notion of service desk ticket elimination. The fact that there's so much room for opportunity in expediting and almost revolutionizing the actual service desk process that an employee goes through on a regular basis. What do I mean by this? Well, the reality of IT support today is twofold. One, there's continued pressure by the business being put on IT teams to reduce costs. And that's okay, but there are still inherent problems to fix, right? Gartner every single year puts out this report around IT key metrics. And what they've found is that employee time lost per issue is actually over 23 minutes. And to couple that, the annual IT cost from a support perspective for each individual employee is over $166. Now, that is extremely problematic and costly. And the current solutions out there today, year over year, have remained stagnant, that only 15% of issues are being solved or at least deflected by some sort of AI-based tool today. And we at Nexthink think there's so much more promise and know that there's so much more promise to be able to move this number from 85% of issues needing human help all the way down to 0. So what does that look like? Well, everybody here is very much in tune with today's IT support experience, right? A problem is happening on the device, whether that's hardware-related, application-related, network-related, whatever the case may be. And the process starts where you pick up the phone or you send a chat message to the service desk. Now, inherently, this is okay, but the only problem is the actual information and issue that's taking place is hard to relay over to the service desk agent that picks up the phone. And that's even if a service desk agent does pick up the phone. A lot of times there are interim solutions in place that are putting the onus back on employees to go back to leveraging knowledge base articles, to defaulting into restarting the computer without the actual context to be able to do so. And then finally, 23 minutes later, you get to this place of, okay, the service desk agent has your issue, is working to solve it. And in many cases, they can solve it. But unfortunately, in others, they have to pass it off to an L2 or an L3 service desk member who has a little bit more expertise. Nexthink is working to revolutionize this process and has already started today. And what we believe the future of IT support looks like, at least in the short term here, is a problem ensues on an employee device. The same process happens in which a phone call is picked up or the chat is opened. We don't need to replace the current solutions that are already in-house today, but instead you're met with an agentic solution called Nexthink Spark. And the power of Spark is that it's a smart agent. It has all the relevant information in real time that's happening on the device. Everything from the operating system being used to the network strength to the application that's crashing. Whatever the case may be, Spark has this context and is able to go through a diagnostic process and an end-to-end troubleshooting process and actually remediate that particular issue that's happening on the device. And as such, also provide this additional cockpit layer for IT teams to be able to see this is the exact conversation that took place, and here's the solution or remedy and the fix that was made in order to help this employee get through that problem. So we envision a world where service desk agents aren't called because the problem is being solved the first time around by Nexthink Spark. And with that, I would love to pass it over to Kevin so that he can actually walk you through the Nexthink Spark demo and really take you through what an IT support ticket resolution should look like leveraging Nexthink.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I'm excited to be here. And so let's look at Spark. So Spark is essentially an L1 agent, right? It's designed to provide agentic AI support for one-to-one troubleshooting with users directly. So it's either through some sort of communication interface like Teams or Slack. It can converse with users. It can run actions to collect data or remediate issues. And then with the platform, what we can do is we can give you data and insights to kind of track and review its work through a single pane of glass, all with the other kind of reactive, proactive, preventative, and strategic capabilities that Matt touched on. So if we take a look at this, I have Power BI open up right here. And right now, I can't even access my dashboards in my reports in Power BI. Essentially, it's broken. So what I could do is I could go to Teams, into Spark as an app, and then tell it, I can't access my reports. Just something very simple and nebulous. And so what it's going to do, it's going to actually analyze what I said. It's going to look at what I've done recently, which you can see right here. It says, I see that you try to use Power BI. Was that what I was trying to accomplish? Yes. So I will, again, just instruct it of what I'm actually trying to do here. And so it sees that Power BI right now is currently functioning enterprise-wide, that other users is not seeing issues with, but it sees something unique to me. It sees that I'm working remotely and that I'm on a hotspot. So now it's going to check my connection. And understand that this tool, it has the capability to reason. So sometimes these chats can definitely take a little time for it to process, but it actually already identified my problem. It identified that my VPN is not connected correctly. So now it's asking, can it fix this for me? And so what I'll go ahead and do is just say yes, because I need to access my reports to continue my work. And so now what it's going to do is execute an action to resolve this. And that's what Spark is enabled to do. It's enabled to converse, to understand, to reason, and take action to remediate or collect data. So it has now told me that it actually implemented my fix successfully, and it wants me to try Power BI again. So if I come back to Power BI and refresh the screen, I have access to my apps. So there's an example of me realizing I have an issue, going to Spark and actually having it resolve my issue. So now would be a good time to say, thank you, that helped, and then move on. But what I want to show you is this was something that we set up in our demo, but I also would like to show you a quick real world example. So at Nexthink right now, we have this internally as a tech preview. And here's a real world example where, at Nexthink, we're forced to re-authenticate with Zscaler, our VPN, every few days, right? It's a necessary security process. But so many times when I go to Zscaler to authenticate, this is my screen. I can't even get to the login screen. So here's an example where I came to Spark, I took a screenshot of my error, and I didn't tell it anything about timed out, right? But it says it can see from that screenshot, it's multimodal, it has vision, that I have a timeout error. So it actually identified from the screenshot the actual error message. And so with that, it actually recommended a series of actions that I could take that I had permissions to perform. So it asked me to restart the services. And so I tried that, but it didn't work. And so when I told it that, it actually went off to, it did its own reasoning and thinking and decided it wanted to execute this action to reset Zscaler. Something I do not have permission to do myself as a user. I don't have these privileges. And so it acts one more time. Is this right? Is this the right time to run this action or not? And I said yes. And it performed the action, resolved my issue. And remember, this is a real world example. If we come back to its first comment to me at 1:38 p.m., I was telling it was resolved 7 minutes later. It's a huge win for me. Just to be able to go in here. If this is a normal issue, I need to reach out to IT. It could take me 30 minutes to an hour just to get, back into my apps, et cetera. Anything that's blocked by VPN, basically. And so that's Spark in a one-to-one kind of conversation aspect. So let's take a look at this from the console perspective, because what Nexthink aims to do, and Matt talked about this, Nexthink is focused on business outcomes, KPIs to measure the business impact, both from a cost and time savings perspective. So here you can see we put that in the forefront to let you know what are the potential savings? What are we seeing right now? What are we projecting? Not just from a cost perspective, but what about from a full-time FTE? When we look at something like success rate here, this is basically showing us all the actions that have been that have avoided human interaction through automation. So it's a huge win just to see any number here. I mean, 65% is a huge number. Even if this is 25%, that's game changer. And then we give you all other types of insights around usage and performance and other types of metrics. So you can see we'll give you a capture of the total conversations. Right now we're looking at the past 30 days, but we can make this a more granular or a more extended kind of view. We give you the measurements from a success, from an escalation and an abandon standpoint. Basically, if it's successful, you've avoided L1 interaction, right? It's automated. The agent was able to resolve these issues. If it escalated, this may mean it didn't have the capabilities, maybe it didn't have the actions, maybe it was outside the scope, maybe the support issue was outside the scope of what Nexthink's doing. But what it can do is it can actually create a ticket to continue that process, that support issue. I have an example where recently I lost access to a critical application in my Okta. And so I went to Spark to ask if it could give me access. It didn't have the capabilities enabled to, give me access to an application, but it asked if it would like to open a ticket in ServiceNow for me. And so within 30 minutes, I got a reply from IT, your ticket's been resolved, you should have access. That's a huge win for me. I'm definitely someone who suffers in silence. I really hate to reach out to support unless I absolutely need to. And honestly, too, I've been with Nexthink 2 years. I've probably had a grand total of 3 issues my entire career at Nexthink. I'm not even sure I know where to go to put a ticket in. So it's just huge to be able to go into a simple chat and just say, can you create a ticket for me? And, with that, by the way, I tried an interesting test with that. I try to tell it, can you add frustrating notes, to the ticket to show that I'm, this is a big issue for me. It didn't do that. It created the ticket. It got me my issue resolved, but it didn't add that, the user was frustrated, which was a fun little test. But, in terms of metrics and usage, again, we break this down by category. So what are the biggest types of issues that that Spark is conversing with users? So we break this down by conversations, right? The total number of conversations. Then we'll tell you the rate of success, escalation, and abandon. By the way, abandon could mean maybe the user didn't follow up with Spark, or maybe there was an issue with Spark, right? But one thing we do is we give you insights into these conversations to understand maybe why it escalated, why it abandoned. And we'll look at that here in a second. But this is huge, just to be able to see the different types of categories, right? To help you not only just understand what Spark's tackling out there, but this just tells you these are the biggest issues our users are experiencing. So it gives you insights more than just it being successful, but what's happening in the organization. So now that's just the kind of overview. If we take a step down and start to look at some of the actions, remember, Spark's about conversing with users, taking action, and reasoning through all of this. And with this, what you can do is you can actually come in here and enable the individual actions that Nexthink or Spark can take. Remember that, requesting access to an app, that could be something that you have turned off. Maybe you don't want an agentic AI to do that. Maybe you want some human in that process perspective, et cetera. So this is where you can come in and pick those actions that Spark has access to. Now, with Nexthink, we have a full suite of remote actions that are available for Spark out of the box, but customers can add their own custom ones. And then also we enable Spark for workflows. So it's not just being able to run these one single actions. Spark can run, they can run orchestration sequenced applications. So multiple actions in a sequence. So there's a lot of powerful capabilities that you can enable Spark to achieve. But on this page, I want to show you that what is possibly my favorite feature of Spark, and shows the real forward thinking of Nexthink, where here we are, Spark has these available actions in this organization, in its capabilities. But you can see over here, it's actually making 3 recommendations to IT, to the administrators of Spark, that says, based on the past 90 days, we've had multiple conversations related to these categories, and Spark did not have the capabilities to resolve this issue. So let's take this top one, for example, that says, based on 19 conversations within the past 90 days, Spark has identified that there's a trend of audio troubleshooting related to Microsoft Teams, and that it doesn't have the available actions to remediate these. So this is one of those instances where it's escalating, but it believes it has the capabilities to resolve these issues. So it is asking IT to enable these actions so it can start to remediate these types of issues. This is that internal feedback loop. This is Spark, the agent in your environment, improving itself and then asking for your permission to enable these types of actions. Imagine if this wasn't a feature and you're in here dissecting the data, trying to find out where it's struggling and, going through it that way in a manual process. Its intelligence, its growth, its capabilities within your organization would be very slow. This shows exponential growth for it to provide its own recommendations on improving itself. And then if we can dive into these conversations as well and understand why it's making these recommendations. So for instance, if I go to conversations and review, first of all, these are 4 conversations that it's asking us to review based on categories. Now, again, some things that Spark may talk about are outside the scope of Nexthink, or they may not have the enabled actions. Here's an example where something's in the scope of Nexthink, but there's some actions that it doesn't have access to remediate these issues. Here's an example where this is something outside the scope of Nexthink, but Spark is identifying and informing IT through insights and intelligence that this is something you should evaluate. If we take this audio quality example and look into this a little bit further, this leads to another one of my favorite things about Nexthink, where we actually show you a lot of our work. If you're familiar with Nexthink, we show you a lot of underlying things that we do to collect data, to take actions, the dashboards and views that we build. You're able to look under the hood of these things, to take them as a template, build them your own, customize them, maybe just use them to build things from scratch. We do the same thing from a conversation perspective with Spark. Here you can see these are 45 chats, and we're looking at the first of 45 related to this audio quality with MS Teams. And in this, we can see its reasoning. Why did it suggest something? Why did it take actions? What was it thinking? And then when we look at this, we can provide it feedback on what it's doing. So if it did something, right, maybe it reasoned correctly, maybe it performed the right actions, it resolved the issue very timely. We can thumbs up this and then add feedback that says you did the exact right things in this process, in this moment. We can also thumbs down. Maybe it recommended something that's not relevant. A lot of times, we're talking Teams here. Everyone thinks Teams issue is a network issue. Maybe we need to come back here and give it feedback that not every Teams issue is a network issue, things like this. So it allows you as an organization to control the development and success of Spark in your organization. And remember, this is going to be unique to every organization. And I'll give you some examples of how this goes even deeper. So every organization is going to have a different look and feel for Spark within there. One thing that we're doing with Nexthink, Spark is integrated with our ServiceNow instance. So that means it has access to our tickets. So it can look at what are common challenges in the organization, what are common solutions to those. It can look at available KB articles, standard operating procedures, all these things to make it sophisticated and focused on your individual environment. And then on top of that, there's another capability that Spark adds called AI learnings. And think of these like memories and LLMs like ChatGPT, etc. If you're not familiar with memories, essentially what you can do is you can have a natural conversation with a Spark or a ChatGPT. And when you say something, it could pick up on that and think that's important, that it may need to remember that for later. This is the same example with AI learnings in Spark. it is identifying patterns, pattern recognition, things that it is recognizing that it needs to remember for success later on. And then just like with those LLMs and the memories, you can manage this. Maybe it has an AI learning that gets outdated because you switched software. You can come in here and change that. So Spark is a really, really cool tool. It's aimed at one-to-one troubleshooting with individuals. So it's meant to be help with reactive processes. But if you think about the goals of Nexthink to help you be proactive and preventative, the idea is to hopefully help you avoid this situation altogether. But then if anything slips through the crack and needs some reactive support, you have this awesome agent to handle those tasks. And that's Spark. Back to you, Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, it's really exciting. We're looking forward to the promise of this. And I know it's started to roll out into customer hands now. We've already seen a lot of great opportunity from that for people continuing to optimize their overarching employee experience up front. So that's great. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about was the true kind of AI value gap, right? We know that in a recent study, it was found that 55% of developers were able to complete tasks faster utilizing GitHub Copilot. So clearly, the opportunity and potential is there. Now, the problem with that is that ultimately, that's one specific example. And the actual investment that's being poured in right now and in the future, right? It's projected from Gartner that $143 billion is going to be spent on generative AI by 2027, isn't yielding the overarching outcomes that organizations desire, where MIT actually recently published a study saying that actually only 5% of AI pilots are making it out of just that pilot. So something's got to give, right? The potential's there, but the overall success rate is not. We also kind of know that there's these main three roadblocks that are causing these challenges, right? That visibility is of the utmost importance, that enterprises are juggling 5+ AI tools, and that's even a very low bar. And there's all this shadow AI that's happening, and people are not able to see, how are employees actually in my organization utilizing AI to become more productive and drive more results. The other thing on top of that is there's adoption issues, right? So the great news is that according to Harvard Business Review, 78% of employees are adopting AI. The only problem is the AI that they're adopting is oftentimes not what the approved business solutions are and what enterprises are set out to actually provide to employees to be able to ensure that safe practices are being utilized and so on and so forth. And similar to that MIT study, what they found was, okay, maybe that the overarching success rate has something also to do with the fact that only 20% of organizations are actually tracking clear KPIs when it comes to generative AI practices. So this entire kind of combination of visibility, adoption, and value is leading to roadblocks, challenges, and ultimately what we call the AI value gap, right? This difference between the notion that the product promise is there, but the value is not being realized, or maybe it's being realized, but not actually be able to be articulated throughout the business. And that's where we really get into AI Drive, a new solution that Nexthink has just pushed out that is now in the hands of customers, that is being leveraged to actually solve this issue. And we've already seen some great results. So Kevin, I'll pass it back to you to do a quick walkthrough of AI Drive.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I actually really love AI Drive. I'm a big fan of AI in general. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to foster growth and usage of AI organically. Now, I'm going to show you AI Drive. There's many ways, based on your organization's strategy on how to use AI Drive. But what Nexthink, from a default perspective, what we want to encourage is organic growth. I like to think of it as choose your own model, kind of perspective. What is making the users more successful, and I call that out because if you think about it, if you've tested, personally, I like Claude. That's my preferred LLM model, but I also like ChatGPT. And one thing I've kind of realized in using different models, they have different collaboration styles. They have different personalities. It's interesting to say that, right? Because it's software. But it's conversing with you, it's collaborating. They have different values and different approaches. And so when you think about that, when you're trying to enable your organization for AI growth, it can help your organization strategically to give the ability for access to the models that people can be more successful with. And so AI Drive is aimed at giving you the intelligence and insights in your organization to help you understand this, to fit neatly into your strategy. So when we look at the module for AI Drive right here, what this is going to do, it's going to answer a lot of questions strategically for your organization. Now, I just kind of showed you Spark, right? Remember, Spark is an one-to-one L1. It means a user is talking directly to Spark. AI Drive is now enterprise-wide. We're looking at this from the bird's eye view of our AI operations and adoption. So when we look at this first widget right here, this answers a very important question. What is happening? What's going on in the environment right now? And one thing you're going to notice, if you kind of see some of these icons here throughout, we also provide some benchmarking, anonymized trend benchmarking aspects to help you understand where do we perform, where do we measure up against like other Nexthink customers in these various fields. So when we look at this as calling out what's happening, we're looking at the weekly active users versus the inactive users over a certain period of time. This, if you think about it, your active users versus inactive users, this is the pulse of your AI operations, the amount of tools that are being used, et cetera. We're going to offer insights based on what we're tracking here. And those insights could be, well, based on the past 2 weeks, we see an uptick in Claude usage, or we see a downtick in Copilot, something like this, right? We're going to try to give you these intelligent insights, not only to look at the data and see these things from a percentage and hard metric perspective, but give you these measurable insights. And then if I scroll down and look at this too, we can provide some more of that what. When we look at this display, what we're going to do is we can start to measure things and get this in a new comprehensive view that shows, based on a weekly engagement time by department and AI tool, what are the most common? And you can see what this does. It shows us here is our homegrown AI tool, and it's being most used by customer service. This is considered the best use of AI from one department and one tool in our organization, giving us incredible insights right away. And we can see that it actually even has the second highest from finance and accounting. So it gives us this perspective. And then I could change this up and get these other unique views where it's always going to concentrate with the most success right here at the top left. So it kind of extends that what is happening kind of perspective. And then if we look down here, we're being told where is AI being adopted and how. Right. And so that's where we provide this dashboard here that gives you this perspective from a champions, versus explorers, who are our most successful stories and then who are really struggling to adopt AI. And if you think about this, what I really love that this shows is imagine yourself as an organization where you're coming in and you're turning AI Drive on for the first time. You don't have this type of visibility from a single pane of glass or enterprise wide with all AI tools. When I turn this on, the first thing I see is I have wins. I have teams out there that are adopting and using AI regularly. And so as an IT organization, what I would think to do strategically, I would reach out to these different groups and understand, how are you using AI? How have you been so successful in getting your users to adopt? What are your use cases? Now, what I could do as an IT organization is align to that. Learn, okay, this is what made you successful. How can IT partner with you to take that further? This is a great opportunity to learn what they're doing and already achieving success, and then find out ways to automate it. Introduce new agents and processes into these workflows. That way you can maximize the success and usage of AI. And then you have a playbook. You have a run book. You know what good looks like. You know how to be successful. And now you can come down to these in the explorers, those ones struggling to adopt and use AI. And now you have all the tools and capabilities to help educate and get that better adoption. So it tells you what good looks like in your organization for you to go out and strategically build the success cases, the criteria, et cetera, to help those others that are challenged. And then if I scroll back up, this little widget right here is going to answer why. Why are we seeing certain activity, et cetera? One thing that's going to happen with AI Drive is we will send out a system campaign, basically a push notification to devices that will ask, based on your usage with AI, how much time do you estimate you've saved with this over a certain amount of time? And then, we'll ask other questions related to this. And you'll notice that, we capture these metrics. Remember, similar to Spark, when we looked at a cost and time saving perspective, here we are again, looking at the time savings from this. One thing I didn't call out is you're able to identify how many licenses you have of the individual tools in your environment, and then you can correlate that. Are we getting the return on investment for the amount of licenses we're paying for Copilot versus Claude, et cetera? But what this does is, again, it answers why, based on these recommended actions through this campaign, we can see, okay, well, if HR has been struggling, there are certain things that we're being told we can improve here. So clicking on this where it says the top recommended critical action, that's what this double caret means, is that we need to promote adoption among the HR roles. With that, Nexthink gives you perspective saying, hey, this will benefit this many people. And then on top of that, it ties into other built-in Nexthink capabilities like a campaign. Maybe we want to send a campaign, the same thing that goes out here, to ask how much time you're saving and say, how can we help you, HR? How can we help you uplift your experience and adoption of AI? Is there anything that's missing, right? So you can send out these campaigns that pull in this details that you're, critically lacking. And on top of that, we also have a feature called Adopt. So as we learn about people struggling and we know let's say we capture the details on how to be successful, we could build guides that actually help them navigate them, point out things in these LLM tools as they're using it. It could be maybe we need to provide guidelines on safe AI usage. Maybe it could be we want to introduce them to a brand new feature and show them actually how to use it. Or it could be that we just want to provide documentation and other things related to that specific application. And that's called Adopt. It supports education and adoption with AI. It's not just built for AI. It can also support any other web-based application out there. But this just shows you that Nexthink is not only helping with the insights and intelligence, but also the what next. I get that question a lot when I talk to customers. This is great intelligence and insights, but what do I do with that data? What do I do next? And this is just an example of how Nexthink provides that perspective. We're partnered with all of our customers to help them achieve this success. And then if I scroll down, one other really cool aspect of AI Drive is this, what we call prompt analysis. Now, this is privacy-focused prompt analysis, meaning it's going to provide summarized high-level insights related to the prompts that users are inputting. But with that, it gives you so much rich context about what are the most popular uses of it. Not only that, but which tools are being used for these things. So for example, here's the top use case for drafting and personalizing communication. Seems to be the number one use in our organization for using AI. We can see this was based on about 1,000 employees and 3,000 different conversations. So it's routine. People are repeating these actions in the organization. And there's 5 tools that people are using for this. When you think about it yourself strategically as an organization, just think about how much stuff this can unlock. I think, first of all, the one thing I'm going to see is if I come down to something as specific and heavy-handed activity as a code and script generation in my organization, and I see 6 tools in use, I see inefficiencies. And that's me that knows AI well. If I go in here and I see people using something, let's say like Copilot for code and script generation, that may not be the most efficient use of LLMs in our organization. I may need to find out who's doing this, what they're doing, and then recommend, hey, we have Codex from ChatGPT that's specific for this. We have Claude, which is a premier LLM for technical things like code and script generation. So it's helping you gain these insights and then understanding ways to improve these different use cases. And then lastly, we break this down overall from all the individual tools and understanding their general adoption. So we're looking at all the individual tools that are enabled in my organization. And then again, remember that benchmarking. We just help you identify, from an engagement perspective, are we leading or are we lagging in each of these categories? Now, Nova AI is a homegrown tool in our organization, so there's no benchmarking data to compare ourselves against. But then you can see everything else in the organization from a lagging or leading perspective. And while I'm showing you holistically the environment, we can actually double click into each of these tools and get the same exact view and breakdown for each tool individually. So if I really want to go in and look at Copilot and understand what prompts are going into it, what usage patterns it has, what are the insights from the recent time frame, I can drill down into Copilot and individually do that, as same as if I wanted to do in ChatGPT, Bolt, and any of the other tools being monitored and tracked through AI Drive. But I think it's tremendous, just all the insights to make you successful in your AI strategy and journey.
Completely agree. This has been one of the most hot topics that we discussed at Nexthink over the past, few months here, and anticipate that it will continue to be number one on the priority list for organizations around the world. So, we love having these strategic conversations, folks like yourself that are, AI advanced. It's great to be able to have not only the conversation, but also, like you said, the recommendations moving forward for how to aid and help our customers make sure they're doing just kind of what we set out here on this webinar to do, right? Mind the AI value gap and try and ensure that people are realizing as much of that productivity value as they can.
Yeah, this is this is overwhelming, and honestly, it feels like it could almost been two events. We're talking about two very major features of Nexthink's solution suite here, and both of them are huge. I don't want to, after what you just showed with Drive, it's hard to remember back to what you were just talking about. But let's go back first to basically what I think you're presenting is the promise of agentic AI, right? And we've been promised agents. We've been promised them for some time now, and we keep being told that they're coming. But I haven't actually seen them operating in the wild quite like Nexthink is doing. Can you just quickly talk a little bit about, why it's hard to do and how you're able to do it at this point?
So basically, Spark has been given a standard operating procedures that essentially gives it, tells it you're going to be having conversations for support, right? You're going to have available actions, right? This is typically what makes up an agent. You have context, you have data, you have tools at your hand. So that's how we enabled Spark from a high level. Then you think about it as the reason this can be successful, and I actually understand AI pretty well. There's it's very, very powerful. It's amazing stuff, but also has some shortcomings, there's some limitations that can get quite frustrating. And I think Nexthink has done a tremendous job on circumventing these things, like the amount of context that it can have to do something, right? There's only so much that it can look into to gain that context. And then you saw some examples in here where if it does something incorrectly or good, give it that feedback. That's huge. That helps change behavior, frame the way Spark understands the organization, the way it should behave in the organization. I think if you think about that too, there's all these different types you can provide feedback. It could be maybe it did everything it should have correctly in that conversation, but maybe you didn't like the tone. This allows you as an organization to shape that uniquely for your organization. I think that's what it comes down to. I think a few of the features that I showed, they're clearly designed to circumvent the kind of shortcomings that you deal with AI. And this is only the first product. It's gonna grow from years, but pretty awesome first version of the solution.
Yeah, and to add on to that, right? It's this almost like triangular combination. So it's the foundational knowledge that Nexthink has provided already to Spark, right? It's the fact that we're experts in the IT industry. We continue to gather all this data. We've been looking for and training Spark for months and months now, and now have it in customer hands. That paired with individual processes by enterprises, right? So how do I ensure that knowledge bases and other key resources are pushed into Spark from a particular enterprise, and every single iteration of Spark is tailored to the actual organization that is involved with. It's not utilizing information from outside organizations. Your Spark version is your Spark. And then pair that with, once again, with what Kevin was saying, with continuous feedback and learning. And now all of a sudden you have this kind of all-encompassing agent that is able to not only assess the situation, but assess the situation with your information and how you want things done, and then previous learning. So it's very powerful.
Yeah, and the demonstration by basically porting it into Teams and showing how that can be conversed with in such a seamless, regular business process is very, very compelling, and it begins to interact with us in a way that allows us to become more efficient and ultimately deliver our jobs more efficiently, more effectively, without necessarily replacing us completely. But so that's fascinating. So I love Spark. Spark is interesting, but let's talk about Drive for a second, because this is a completely different problem. Now you've got what Spark is doing is kind of delivering AI at kind of the collaborative level, but what Drive is doing feels to me like it's really taking stock of how people are using AI across the board and trying to make sense of it. So again, walk us through a little bit of the logic here and what your customers are asking for and kind of why you're developing this sort of approach.
There's no one out there offering something like this. I think you can individually look into some of these tools, maybe find some of this data. It's not going to be probably all in the same location though, right? And what we're doing is we're giving you a single pane of glass to look at everything in scope. So it gives you the insights from everything, not just an individual tool. And I think one of the biggest values that I kind of showcased here is it just helps you gain insights into this. Like through the prompt analysis, we can understand what are they asking, and that helps you understand. Well, maybe ChatGPT is being used most for image generation or some of these other things. So it's about unlocking not just the data, but the insights from that data, and that's what Nexthink has been aimed to do. Endpoint wise in the DEX landscape, and we're doing this now to the entire AI adoption and usage in organizations.
And that's ultimately why you can do it, right? Because you are at that DEX level, so you do have access to that activity and you can see what's going on. And ultimately, that is the challenge with any organization: is do you have visibility into everybody's behavior?
We are uniquely positioned. And I think about the data that's being collected and then utilized, right? So Kevin walked through the different components of it. There's the hard usage metrics, right? Hey, how many people are utilizing this? How often are they utilizing this? How does that compare to other organizations of a similar size? So on and so forth. You marry that with some of the kind of the prompted data as well to be able to say, okay, now I know how much it's being utilized. Now with the prompt pieces, I know what it's being utilized for. And then the engagement side and the sentiment side is really, okay, how do I make better sense of that and guide people to ensure that we're utilizing it in the most effective way? So there's just so much opportunity to be able to kind of complete the picture moving forward and ensure that, that value is realized because the dots are being connected.
Yeah, can you, Kevin, can you just take that one step further? So I saw in the demonstration that you can see what people are using. It goes all the way down to being able to create effectively a guide based upon what you're seeing and the feedback that you're receiving from some of the prompts that you can then deliver, or some of the feedback that you can ask for around that behavior. But then you're ultimately able to deliver, and I would assume you're using AI to create the guide. So ultimately now the guide is being created within the system, and then you can ultimately, to just kind of extend it out, probably see adoption around how many people are actually using the guide, and it just keeps on going down and down and down, yeah?
Absolutely. The AI can, in terms of creating the guides, I think it can start the process for you, but I think you'll still want to kind of understand the use cases, right, and help build the unique perspectives. But you're absolutely right. Like once you build these guides and once people start using it, you capture the metrics for that, the insights, how many times are they using this guide? How quickly are they getting through the processes, each step in the guide, et cetera? We give you these types of insights. And then think about this too. It's not just about guides to help. It could be, or education. It could be, maybe we need acceptable use cases. You have to review some training before you can use this AI tool. Adopt can help with all that kind of stuff. So it's gaining the insights, getting these kind of run books, if you will, and then executing on those with Nexthink. We have the complete end-to-end from the high-level insights and strategy all the way down to the actionable, street level, I guess, activities and actions.
Yeah, it's a pretty again a completely different demo, but another incredibly compelling demo, and I think that's the other challenge, right? So we are looking forward to agentic AI and looking forward to practical agents that can work within the business workflows that we are comfortable with and the applications we're using. But ultimately, at a much higher level, organizations do need to understand what they're getting, who's using what value people are getting, how they're using it, whether or not there is any kind of potential data leakage or just kind of use that might be straying off into not necessarily an area where an organization wants AI to be engaged. So Matt, talk a little bit about where you're seeing traction here. Let's start with Spark first. So you're talking to customers about this. Obviously, customers, I'm sure, have been asking you for agentic AI, and because you're particularly positioned with the digital employee experience application. What are customers asking for? What are they responding to? Where are you finding traction?
Yeah, so even over the past couple of weeks, I've probably had 20 plus customer conversations, and they all start in a similar form or fashion, which is, hey, we have this organizational mandate to ensure that we are effectively driving down as many tickets as possible and doing it at an accelerated rate, right? Before, the conversation was about, how do I solve all these tickets as fast as possible, meaning that the tickets are still coming in. And now it's how do we utilize AI to solve these tickets before they actually get passed off to a human agent? And so that's kind of where we start, right? Where people are looking for solutions there. People have already made investments in some of these types of solutions in terms of, the promise of, hey, I'm utilizing this particular vendor to actually interact with my customers. And that's where we're trying to take things a step further with Spark, right? We're not trying to rip out all the different systems and processes that you have in place. We're trying to enhance it and ensure that if you're utilizing, Kevin mentioned ServiceNow or MoveWorks or another system of record for your employee-facing chat, now all of a sudden it becomes so much smarter because of the agentic formula that we've put into place. So a lot of those kind of conversations really stem around, how do we ensure that tickets are not only being solved faster but reduced altogether?
Yeah, Kevin. I mean, one of the last questions, I think last question for me, I'll ask you. As people start to think about 2026, right? So we're starting to turn the corner here. It's felt a lot like, as we've been watching folks at Solutions Review, that there's a certain amount of paralysis in terms of decision making because there's so many things happening so quickly, and people don't want to necessarily miss out on what is right around the corner. And as you said, I think one of the points made was there's $137 billion of investment being made in AI solutions. So a lot of people are maybe sitting on their hands a little bit. Clearly, you guys are in the vanguard here. So what advice would you provide to somebody as they're planning for 2026 and starting to think about either moving to a digital employee experience solution similar to Nexthink, or just trying to take their employee enablement to the next level? What kind of advice would you offer to people who are watching a show like this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would actually encourage you to reach out to Nexthink to learn more about what we showed you today. I think I understand probably better than anyone that there's so much uncertainty with AI. It's unpredictable. It blew up overnight. I mean, this is the first technology I can remember in my history where IT is forced to adopt a cutting edge, bleeding edge technology, right? Usually you're forced to, or usually you want to kind of wait a little bit for things to get mature, but AI is just so advanced that it's actually changing IT in that perspective. So with that uncertainty, look, at Nexthink, we don't just have these products like AI Drive and Spark. We also have conversations with customers. So we learn about what is happening out there. We can be a strategic partner, not just a technology partner in the space. I think again, there's so much uncertainty. Model context protocol, for example, is a brand new focus for AI. It's the biggest probably news this year in AI. It just came out 6 months ago. And I was talking to CIOs recently that are already introducing these, right? So that's where I encourage you, reach out to Nexthink. We can help you with that uncertainty, essentially.
Yeah, I would obviously encourage everybody to reach out as well. At a minimum, go to Nexthink's website and take a look at all of this.
Request a demo.
Amazing. Yeah, request a demo. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. And like I said, there's two incredible developments happening at Nexthink right now, both of which could carry a spotlight all by themselves, but we got them both today. So you got a 2-for-1. And we would, we'll obviously be tracking Nexthink. That we've had Matt on before. Kevin, it was a pleasure having you. And we look forward to all the things you're going to be launching over and above this. But best of luck with Spark and with Drive, and we'll talk to you in 2026, I'm sure.
All right, thank you, Doug.
Take your time. Take care.
So there you have it, another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Kevin and Matt and Nexthink for that presentation, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.
If your business would like to be featured in a future event, contact us today.